guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today is my September wrap-up, so stay tuned. So I know it's late. I'm still working on trying to catch up on all these wrap-up videos that I got so far behind on, but these are all the books that I read in the month of September. So let me just start out by telling you my stats for September. So in September, I read a total of 20 books, one of which was a graphic novel. I had 1 1-star, 0 2-stars, 7 3-stars, 8 4-stars, and 4 5-stars. I read a total of 7,107 pages, which I think is the most I've ever read in a single month before. So I totally put these all on here backwards. So I'm gonna flip them over pretty much. One second. Okay, these are not really well balanced, so they're like wobbling all over the place. So I should just get started before they fall down. So the first book that I read in September was When Dimple Met Rishi by Sanjay Minion. Love the back of this, by the way. I gave this 4 stars. This was a really cute story. Dimple Shaw and Rishi Patel couldn't be more different, but their parents hoped to arrange a marriage between them. Rishi loves like all of the family traditions and believes in arranged marriages, but Dimple has no interest in being set up with anyone. All she cares about is coding. So when she asked to go to this special summer programming for coding and her parents say yes, she couldn't be more excited. Though it didn't take her long to figure out what her parents were up to, because Rishi shows up for this program too. And as much as Rishi tries with Dimple, she just isn't interested. And they end up being partnered together to work on this project, and they have to spend lots of time together. And it turns out they may have more in common than they think. Okay, so the next book that I read was one that I read with Xander, and that was Artemis Fowl by Jon Huckeby, and I gave this 1 star. We ended up actually DNFing this about halfway through. Neither me nor my son were interested in the story at all. You know, by the halfway point, we just hadn't gotten into it. And to us, it seemed kind of boring. So we didn't feel the need to continue with it. And that's really all I have to say about this. Okay, next up was The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, and Maureen Johnson. And I gave this 4.5 stars. I am such a huge fan of Magnus Bane, as well as the entire Shadowhunter world. And, you know, I love his spirit, his heart, his sense of humor, and of course, his sense of style. This book follows along different points in Magnus's life that we don't get to witness in the other books. I love getting to see his parts of the story. The only issue that I had was that it seemed to follow along chronologically for a while, and then it skipped back and then started going chronologically for a while again, and then skipped back and then started going chronologically for a while. And it was just, I didn't like that, because I think it would have been much better if it just flowed all the way through. That's just my opinion. That's why I only gave it 4.5. Still absolutely adored it. Just would have preferred the order to be a little different. Okay, next up was Early Dawn by Katherine Anderson. And I gave this 3 stars. This is really not my kind of story. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't a genre that I prefer. This is an Old West historical fiction romance. Pretty much none of those fit me. But it starts out with Matthew coming to after being unconscious for about 2 weeks following an attack on him and his wife. by a gang of ruffians, only to learn that his wife was brutally raped and murdered. He vows to seek revenge on the men that did this. Once he is all well and healed up, he spends years hunting them down. In the meantime, the ruffians continue wreaking havoc, and during a train robbery, they decide to take Eden hostage and have plans to sell her to someone in Mexico, but not before they have some fun with her. Matthew finally catches up to them while they have Eden held hostage, and he rescues her, and the ruffians do not like that they've lost their prize. So now they are hunting Matthew and Eden. And the majority of this story is their journey after getting Eden away from them. It's a cute story, and for someone that likes westerns or historical romance books, then I think they'd very much enjoy this book. Okay, next up I read The Arc of the Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It had me guessing who done it the entire time, and I don't think I ever guessed anything right. So 5 years ago, 5 cheerleaders all died within a month of each other. Some were in an accident, others were murdered, one committed suicide. Monica is the sister of the cheerleader who supposedly committed suicide, but she doesn't think the story's as cut and dry, and she doesn't believe for a second that her sister would have killed herself. She's hunting for the truth, but will she like what she finds? Okay, next up is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han, and I gave this 4 stars. It was such a cute story, and I cannot wait to read the rest of the trilogy. This is actually a book that I managed to get my daughter Becca to read, and she is not one that's interested in books at all, and she has since completed the entire trilogy, and she's just waiting for me to catch up. And our plan was to finish reading the book, and then we were going to cook all of the little cookies and stuff that was in the back, and we were going to watch the movie together. But we haven't actually gotten to do that yet, so I can't compare this to the movie because I haven't watched the movie yet, and we haven't made the cookies. So we really need to find a time to do that soon. Not sure when, but I'm getting to meet Jenny Han for Y'all Fest, so I'm excited to get this signed. And, well, I'm just excited about Y'all Fest in general, but as far as this book goes, more than anything, I love the relationship between the 3 sisters. I wish my sisters and I had been more like the Song sisters growing up. I also love the fact that this book is just so darn sweet and innocent, and it's just so wholesome and wonderful, and I love it. Okay, next up is Watchers by Dean Koontz, and I gave this 4 stars. I listened to this with Marty, and we both agreed that it was a 4-star read, though I recommend reading the physical book versus listening to the audiobook, because this audiobook was done, I think, back in the 80s, and it sounds like it was done back in the 80s. The voice and everything that's used for it, it just doesn't sound as good as the audiobooks nowadays do. There is so much going on in this story. The government's been doing experiments on dogs, trying to breed super intelligent ones that they can use as spies. They've also been experimenting with DNA splicing to create another super smart being, but this one's meant to be used as a weapon, and it is truly a beast. Both escape from the lab. The dog just wants to be free, but the beast wants to kill the dog. And the government wants to get them back without them being exposed for what they are. And if that's not enough, there's a random psycho assassin thrown in the mix. In my opinion, the book could have done without the crazy assassin guy and still been great. I adored the dog in this story though, so much. And yeah, so good. Okay, next up was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I read this for my Potter Watch read-along that is still currently going on if you want to jump in and join us. This is the first time that I am reading the series, and we're doing it one book at a month and watching the movie that goes along with it. And I'm reading this with Xander, my 12-year-old son, and he's experiencing both the book and the movies for the first time as well. And we are both absolutely loving this series so much. Battery. Just a second. Sorry if there was an angle change, and sorry for the interruption, but my battery died. Okay, back to this book. This is literally a world that I think nearly every kid dreams of being a part of, even before the Harry Potter books even existed, which I think plays a big part into why this series was such a huge success. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to school at Hogwarts and learn cool magic spells? We both cannot wait to continue reading the rest of the series and watch each of the movies that go along with them. I also want to add that it's such a cool experience to be experiencing these for the first time with Xander experiencing them for the first time as well. Reading together is both of our favorite time of day. Okay, next up was Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Reese Brennan, Maureen Johnson, and Robin Wasserman. And I gave this 5 stars. I loved this book so much. I was actually a little worried that I wouldn't like it as much as I do the regular novels. After reading the Bane Chronicles, I imagine that this one would be very choppy like that one was as well, because this is just a bunch of novellas put together, but Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy was very different than the Bane Chronicles. If you didn't know that this was comprised of a bunch of different stories put together, you would think they're just chapters in a regular book. It flowed so well and let me really revel in their world just a little longer. So this is about Simon joining the Shadowhunter Academy and him finding his way and making friends and trying to get his memory back. And I just can't say enough how much I love the entire Shadowhunter world. Okay, next up is Unearthly Divine by Tabby Newcomb, and I gave this 3 stars. And I want to start out by saying that Tabby Newcomb is such a sweet person, and I absolutely adore her. And I'm hoping to one day get to go down to Florida and hang out with her there. Okay, now about the book. It had some really good parts and some not great parts. It's about this girl named Lexi who discovers she's something very special. She has the purest soul in the world, and well, the devil wants her out of this world, and he sends hell's soldiers meant to claim her. I really enjoyed the main storyline. The issues that I had with this book was the mood swings of all the characters, the love triangle, which I felt was forced, and the fact that every interaction between Cade and Lexi goes on and on and on about how hot Cade is. As far as how the book ended, I was not expecting that. Like I said, I really enjoyed the main storyline, and I thought the ending was just wow. Okay, next up is Whatever Happened to Janie by Carolyn B. Cooney, and this is the second book in the Janie Johnson series, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved it just as much as I love the first book. In this book, Janie/Jenny is forced to cut off all ties with friends and family that she's grown up her whole life with and move in with her rightful family. As you can assume, things don't go very well. Janie/Jenny doesn't really adjust to her new life, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. And they're such short books too, and they're just they're so good. Oh my gosh, they're so good. Love these. Okay, next up is my graphic novel that I read, and that is Giant Days by Allison Trayman, Saren, and Koger. And the art in this is just so cute. This is volume 2, and this continues the adventures of Susan, Esther, and Daisy in their first semester of their freshman year of college as they try balancing dating, exams, and just trying to survive the winter. I enjoy this series and intend on absolutely continuing it. And I gave this 4 stars. Okay, next up was The House with a Clock in Its Walls by John Bellairs. And I gave this 3 stars. It was just okay for me. I read this with my son before the movie came out because we were planning on going to see it. After reading it and having seen the trailers for the movie, I was guessing that the movie was going to be very different from the book, but I also kind of guessed it was going to be better than the book. After watching the movies, my assumptions were absolutely correct. This is the one case where the movie was actually better than the book. They filled in a lot of stuff that you didn't get with this book. I mean, this is only like 179 pages long. It's a very short book. And I was curious on how in the world they were going to make this into a full movie. It had sort of a Goosebumps feel to it, but I loved what they did with the movie. It was really entertaining. The story is about this boy named Lewis whose parents have died, and now he has to go and live with his uncle Jonathan. Jonathan and his best friend slash neighbor are both wizards. And he lives in a house that was previously owned by another evil wizard that left this doomsday clock hidden in the house. You can hear the ticking of this clock in every wall of the house. Lewis experiments with some magic and resurrects the previous owner, who is set on finishing off the world. Okay, next up is You by Carolyn Kepnes, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I listened to the audiobook of this as well because I felt it would probably be a little more creepy doing that way because it's told in like, you were doing this and I saw you do that kind of thing. I thought it was an interesting story. It was entertaining and quick to read. It was strange though. A lot of the time I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about this book. It really wasn't as creepy as I was expecting it to be. It was more strange than anything. I found myself rooting for the crazy murderous stalker guy. And then I'd have to check myself because he's the crazy murderous stalker guy. But it was still a fun read. Okay, next up was Broken Hearts, Fences, and Other Things to Mend by Katie Finn, aka Morgan Matson. And I gave this 3.75. I really enjoyed the story. There were a few aspects that kept me from giving it a 4. One of those being I figured out way too early what was going on. And 2, because I felt there were parts that were totally unrealistic. That being said, I do intend on reading the rest of the series because I thought it was a really cute story. Gemma at 11 caused so much havoc all over the Hamptons that she vowed to never return again. Now, being forced back 5 years later, she has to face up to some of the things that she did in her past. But when she arrives, there is a case of mistaken identity. She thinks it might be best to just go with it for now and try to get these people to change their mind about her before she reveals who she truly is. But of course, nothing goes the way she plans. And it was a cute story. I think I'm gonna have to move this tower a little bit. Okay, next up was Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I gave this 5 stars. This book was so good. This is one of the rare instances that I watched the movie before I read the book. I wasn't actually all that interested in reading the book, and then the movie came out and it got so much hype that I went to see it and I fell in love. I left the theater in tears. So did Becca. After that, I wanted to read all of Becky Albertalli's books. This book was just as good, if not better, than the movie. It turned me into complete mush. I had such a dopey grin on my face the whole time while I was reading this. It's just so darn sweet. I've heard other people say that the book made them cry more than the movie did. It was the opposite for me. I think the movie pulled at those emotions a bit more because I was actually seeing it. For those of you who don't know what this book is about, it's about a boy named Simon who is trying to figure out how to come out to his friends and family as gay. And it was so incredibly well done. Okay, next up is Unbreakable, the Legion Book 1 by Cami Garcia. And I would give this 3.5. It was an okay story. I did enjoy it, but I don't see myself continuing the series either. It's about a girl named Kennedy whose mother is killed by a ghost. When the ghost comes for Kennedy next, this group of kids show up and save her and explain that she is part of this thing called the Legion that's meant to protect the world. There's a lot of ghost hunting and spooky aspects. There are definitely some creepy parts in the book. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but it just isn't really my style. If you like ghost story books though, you would enjoy this. Okay, next up is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli, and I gave this 4 stars. I actually went into this book with kind of low expectations. I had read The Upside of Unrequited the month before and gave that a 3.5, and then Simon I gave a 5-star, so I wasn't really sure where this would fall, and I had heard some not great reviews about this, so I was thinking it was going to be on the lower end. But I actually ended up liking it more than I expected. Yes, Leah is very snarky, but a lot of that has to do with like low self-esteem issues that she has. The story's supposed to be about her trying to figure out how to come out to her friends as bisexual. Coming out to her mom was easy. Coming out to her friends is a little trickier. Also, she's dealing with feelings that she's having towards someone. Yes, all of that was part of this book. But to me, the whole of this book was about this group of friends graduating high school and getting ready to spread out all over the place, going to different colleges, or in the case of some, not going to college at all, and how they're adjusting to this part of their lives. Some people have to say goodbye while others become closer. This aspect of the story is why I enjoyed it so much. Okay, next up was The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. And I gave this 3 stars. To me, it was just okay. I didn't dislike it, but I also didn't love it either. It felt kind of a bit drawn out. It was like it was a short story that was made into a much longer story without really adding more to the story, if you know what I mean. Anyway, it's about a boy whose parents are killed, and he manages to escape the house and makes his way to the graveyard. The man that kills his parents goes looking for him to kill the boy too, but when he goes to the graveyard, the ghosts there protect him. He is then raised in the graveyard by the ghosts and the caretaker until one day he finally meets the man who killed his parents. Okay, and then the last book that I read for September was Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I really liked it. Theodosia was only 6 years old when she witnessed her mother being murdered by the people that invaded her kingdom. After that, she became their trophy and used her to make a statement to any rebel forces. If they rebelled, she paid for it. Her people are enslaved and she is tortured. Those holding her hostage call her the Ash Princess. But she can no longer live like this. Her people need her to rise from the ashes and become the queen she was meant to be. And I absolutely intend on continuing this series. So this is everything that I read for the month of September. Have you read any of them? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!